Welcome, everyone, to Inside the Market on PCARMARKET Live. You'll find us now on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, so you can really find us anywhere, even when you're driving. How appropriate is that? Please subscribe to all of our podcast episodes and these installments of Inside the Market. I think you'll find them very valuable because it was really created to talk about what's sold, why, current market values, and really what's happening in the Porsche community and as far as selling and even different other types of things happening. We'll also answer questions regarding the auction and deal tank, etc. So I think you'll find this very informative in all parts of your Porsche life. Today we have Jim Barry, our very own Jim Barry, VP of PCARMARKET, with us again. Say hi, Jim.
Hello.
And we also have a special guest today. We have Doug Tabbutt, okay, who is the owner of Switchcars. You all know who Switchcars are. And he's a car enthusiast. He sold cars on PCARMARKET and holds multiple Transcontinental Indurance Driving records, say that 10 times fast, including the infamous New York to LA Cannonball. How you doing, Doug?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I want to jump into this because when it comes to somebody like you, we could talk probably for 45 minutes before the 40-minute podcast starts. So I'm going to dive right in over here. So again, one of the reasons that we invited you on is the insight into the market. I know you have a specialty in a segment with the GT3s. We're going to talk about that. But I want to start with, in fact, you know what? Let's just jump right into, we'll get into the GT3s a little bit later in depth. But let's just talk about some of the auctions that ended, because that's what a lot of the people tune in for, is to find out like what's hot, what's not, what makes a great auction, what can they do to increase their chances of selling the car at a higher price. So we're going to start with the paint to sample GT3RS 2016 that sold a few days ago, I believe, last week on PCARMARKET. It was an absolutely gorgeous car, and I have Jim over here, in the studio with us, and I just wanted to just mention a few things before we get deep into this. The first thing I want to mention is the photos are okay. I mean, this is something we do on every time we talk about an auction is the photos, because again, I can't say this enough, is all you have are pictures and words when you're selling online. And you have to do it right. Honest, integrity is key, or else you're done. And then if you can have the right photos, the right angles, and the right shadows, and also the words, it means everything. And this particular car, and I have it on here, and I'm going to show it on the screen. There's a lot of shadows on the side view here. If you look at the interior shot, you can see that there's like a little bright spot from the camera or the flash. So when you look at the first two pictures, and I'm showing it on the screen here, when this actually goes live, you'll see it looks like there's almost wear on the seats, and the side shadows, for someone who's not a professional photographer, it kind of looks okay. It's a nice profile view of the car, but look at the shadows and what's missing on this particular photo. So these are the things that I want to bring up as far as what not to do and what to look for when taking photos. Before I jump over to you, Doug, is Jim, what did you see about this auction that worked and what didn't work, and what was the positives that really made this sell?
Well, I think the positive is it was a private owner, which people really like that. They like going, direct to the source in a lot of cases because they know the price is probably going to be fair. The paint to sample is huge. I remember when these cars came out, just the purple and the lava orange were selling for like $300,000, which was a tremendous amount of a window sticker. This is a paint to sample. This could have been a $350,000 car in 2016 when it was new. Wow. So, to get in at this price point, and the car is, an untracked, nice example, I think that's what made everyone jump in, because it's the right time.
It's also stunning. That signal green, it's a stunning color. Yep. But Doug, this is your sweet spot. This is your wheelhouse, man. Tell us your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my initial thought seeing the photos is, nice camera filter. That's one of the worst things to do when taking photos. The best thing you can do is use a good DSLR or just a filter-free modern iPhone in the proper lighting. Flat lighting, cloudy days are perfect for getting the interior, for not getting funky shadows, and for showing the color right. But then, with a car with that low mileage, a paint to sample car, with the information provided, you can kind of overlook a lot of sins with a car like that, because paint to sample cars are rare. People are buying a little bit more on the statistics than the presentation. There's only so many questions you can ask on a 2,500 mile car, and paint to sample is certainly somewhat rare, so people may be willing to overlook some bad photography or lack of details or whatever. Although, I say paint to sample is rare. It's not quite that rare anymore. It's more than 10% of Porsche GT production in the 991 generation.
But in general, I think what you said is very, very important. A car like this, people can imagine it in person. They can see through a lot of the little flaws in the photos. And the write-up is clear, and it's like they get excited about this car. But if you have anything less than this, the photos could hurt it, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A 2,500-mile paint-to-sample Signal Green RS doesn't need that many words. People just want to know, what options does it have? Has it been wrecked? And how many miles does it have, or has it been tracked? When you start getting into older cars that have potentially expensive problems and more nuances, then the pictures really, really become key.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and everyone is going to have different loves and different passions, and what may be beautiful to me may not be to someone else. That's why it is so important for people to take the right photos, and also to understand that you don't have to be a professional photographer. We have our team over here. We have most of the letters that we receive from people are thanking our crew for giving them some type of guidance in taking their photos, because it's monstrous, Jim. No.
Huge, tremendous, yeah.
Yeah, huge and tremendous. That's like really big.
Right. Well, and especially in a rare color like this, that could look very different online versus in person. It's important to take the right photos in the right light without filters, so that people actually know what color they're buying.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So we're going to take a pause right here, because you are coming over. Am I coming over good with you? Like, am I clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your words and your mouth are totally out of sync. So let me see what's going on. Hang on one second. We'll jump into the next car. So
you can fix it post, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, well, not that part. Hello. It's like a Japanese movie. It's not very difficult. You good? We're just gonna go for it.
Pretty good.
Okay. So here we are. We are actually working right now in the middle of the beginning of the hurricane that came up from the north. So we have some technical issues, but we're going to fight through it with Doug and Jim.
It came from the south, but
what did I say?
I don't think you said from the north, but it's all right. It really is irrelevant.
I'm always thinking northeaster, but I'm sorry, coming from the south. Depends on which way. If you're on your ad.
Nor'easter.
Yeah.
The nor'easter. Okay.
Nor'easter, as we say in Maine.
Is that right? Nor'easter.
Yeah.
Nor'easter. Yeah, those get nasty. But we are going to fight through this, and now you seem to be okay. So, I don't know, maybe you moved in the right direction, but we're good. Anyway, so we're going to jump into the next car over here, which is 1998 993 Carrera S. Beautiful, beautiful car. This car is, you all know what deal tank is. This car sat in deal tank for 2 weeks. So the car, for some reason, went through the auction, didn't sell, got up to, I don't remember what it got up to.
I think it got into the lower 80s.
Lower 80s, a beautiful, I mean, there's not many more beautiful things on this earth than a C2S with that twin grille. I know you'll both agree with that, so that's not a question, but I want to just preface this about a few things. Well, again, talking about the photos. The photos on this were, in my opinion, were a 6 out of 10. And Doug, if you look at them, you'll see there are some shots on this car that make no sense. In other words, the composition of a photograph is where the car sits with its background and its, is it centered and so forth. And composition is as important as anything else. So when you look at this, go through it. If you're on, just go through it. Take a look at it, and you'll see the car is off center, half the car is off. Even if you're zooming in on a certain part of the car, there has to be some thought to how much of the left and how much of the right car it's gonna be off screen. And you'll see this, and we'll actually gonna show it right now for those of you watching. And for those of you that are on the Spotify and Apple, just imagine something that's not right. So we're gonna show you some pictures here that you'll see what needs to be right, and that makes a big deal. So that's one of the things. And the beauty shots, we call them, which are the shots that the first 2, 3, 4, 5 shots that show the beautiful angles, the distance. They were tight. They were really, really tight, and something. And a black car, to me usually is tough to photograph. But a 993 in black is absolutely gorgeous. One of the cars that really, really show well in black, because usually you don't see the shadows in a black car. Usually on a silver or other cars, but black on the 993 really, really shows well. And when you have a tan interior, wow, it just sets it off so nicely. So, just Jim, I want to throw it over to you for a minute, and I know, Doug, that you also have 993s. You've sold them, you know them, and it's the end of the air-cooled world. For those of you that are not familiar, the 1998 C2S, one of the most sought after of all of them. The final year of the air-cooled, and other than the Turbo S, it's probably one of the most coveted 993 models, right, Jim?
Absolutely. I mean, what excites me about this car is it's so nice for the price, because typically you either see like these really high mileage ones that, there's a lot of apologies, or you see the collector grade ones that are like 130 grand. And to buy this car, it sold for 88, plus the 5%.
Incredible.
And it looked like a car with less mileage.
Yeah.
The color combination was great. The tan accents the black really nice. But then the little things that, I could live without, but if they're there, I love it, is the rear wiper, the supple leather.
Yeah.
I believe it had the hi-fi sound. And, of course, the 18-inch, which a lot of people don't realize was an option on the 2S. They came with 17-inch wheels. The 4S and the turbos came with 18s. So it has the turbo twist wheels, which, complement the wide body. And to me, it's a must on that car.
Yeah, no doubt. And Doug, listen, tell me if I'm crazy here, but I mean, I hate to keep talking about the past, but 5 years ago, this car is 140 grand. No?
Yeah. 2014-15 at the peak of the market, the C2S was certainly easily a six-figure car.
Yeah, and again, when you say six figures, a C2S, a 98s, I mean, Jim, we know this. These cars, you take a 20,000 mile C2S, you're talking almost 200 grand at peak, yes?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible. So the point is, again, the reason for this show within the Pcar market community is to talk about values. And there are people that looked at a C2S 4 or 5 years ago and they couldn't afford it, or they said, what's going to become of the values? Is it going to be a bad investment? If you have ever thought about buying a 993, Doug, now's the time. Am I right?
Yeah, I think it's a good time for sure. They corrected and they've rebounded a little bit, but they're not certainly at their peak that they were in 2014-15. And a 993 and a 964 are pretty much the same value right now. And I think the 993 is certainly a lot more of a car, both in terms of styling and performance.
Yeah, I mean, that's a major subjective statement, but I love that because it's kind of seeing. No, I love it because that's
what isn't subjective in the Porsche world.
No, it's true, but I would love. We're going to do that one day. A show 993 to the 964 is the styling because they're so different, and then when you have the rear suspension, the car is so different, and some people feel that they're in something more special in a 964, but the 993 takes nice leaps, as far as cold air conditioning. The handling, Porsche had that commercial where the car launched and then landed when it got some air, and there's a reason for that because there was major suspension changes in the 993, and we'll talk another tech time, talk more about that another time. But I think that's the 993, great values. Something to really look at right now. And when you look at something that could go up in the future, there's a lot of cars that say they're past their prime, they're past their peak, they've really reached it, and now they're less money. You're going to buy them and enjoy them and just be happy. But I believe the 993 still has some upside when things maybe change a little bit. Some of the older cars, maybe not so much. Maybe they're not coming back. But the 993, because of it's not an older car. I mean, you're talking about a car that really is, that's a poster car for some people that were born that may be in their 40s right now, not 60s and 70s. So right. you believe that there's some, both of you guys, you believe there's some opportunity?
100%, yeah. And I also look at when they were at their peak, they were considerably more money than walking into a showroom and buying a new 911. Now, you look at a brand new 992, you're not getting one for much less than 130 unless it has no options. This is becoming a value proposition now.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Doug?
Well, and if you look at it in terms of the vintage cars too, everybody wants air-cooled cars, and you look at a 993 driving experience versus, let's say, a 930.
Yeah.
930s had just as much of a run up as 993s, but the 930 is pretty antiquated turbo system. It's a 4-speed manual with not great gearing, and the 993 base model is a 3.6 liter Metzger motor with a 6-speed manual, and it's far and away better styling. And plus just the generational aspect of it, guys like me who grew up with the 993 being on posters on our walls, we remember the Kills Bugs Fast advertisement with the Arena Red 993 turbo. I mean, that pulls on our purse strings. So I think long term, that's going to be a lot better value proposition than a 930 or even some of the long nose cars, just because of the driving experience and what you get for your dollars.
No. Wow, is there a lot to talk about here? I have a lot to say there. I'm going to stop because we can't make this a 2-hour show. But I love that perspective. It really is. That's the there's between the 930 and the 993. There's a lot to talk about in those how antiquated the 930 turbo actually really is. The turbo lag and everything about that car compared to the 993. But where do you find joy? Where does somebody find joy in a car? Some find it in the 993. Some find it in the 930 turbo. Interesting. So we'll move on because I can keep that topic going. Next is something very interesting to me, and I think, Doug, this will be again in your sweet spot. And I know that Jim and I have been. Listen, if there's these 996s, so we're going to talk about a 2001 996 turbo coupe, and the one that recently sold. A driver. The pictures were off the charts. It was not a dealer. It was a private seller who really knew how to take pictures or was smart enough to have someone that really knew how to take pictures. The photos are an 8 out of 10. To get a 10 out of 10 out of 10 with me is really difficult because if you look at the sky in this picture, you can see there's definitely some, there's a lot going on as far as using filters and stuff like that to make it look nice. And that's great. That's great. As long as there's close-up photos to show the stuff that may be imperfections, that's fine. But, so besides the photos, just if you look through these photos, and I'll show some of them on screen, very well presented. Talk about composition. There you go. Far away, background, nothing to distract, the right angles, not too much. In a black car, you can easily get tremendous amount of reflection, and you don't have an over-the-top reflection problem here. Interior photos show details, just really, really nice photo. The car did well, for a driver, and I think that it was a win on both sides. The car sold for $42,500 plus the fee, so it was like $45,000, and nice car. And forgetting about this particular car, holy crap, when you look at what the 996 turbo offers you, I was talking to our fabricated technician downstairs, Rich, and the best word is it's a supercar for really a fraction, a tiny little fraction of the cost of other supercars out there. And as far as I'm concerned, I really don't have a problem with the headlights. I never did. I thought they were cool. And I did have a problem with the side of the car, the fact that it kind of lost its design, its style. I've learned to like we have an RS, a GT3RS over here, which I'll show, a GT3RS, a 996. And, the lines are not there. There's no bulging of the fenders, but in itself, it's just it's so cool. But when you get into the turbos and you get into the C4Ss and you have that little bit of a flare with those headlights, hey, it's a cool looking car. And we also know that everything quirky becomes cool, and those are usually some of the most collectible things out there. What are your thoughts, Doug?
Yeah, I thought that was a good listing, and certainly the photos were good. And I think the car did well because there was an engaged seller, and all the
good point.
There was transparency. So there were some things that needed addressed on that car, but there was no unknowns. So people aren't scared of issues. They're scared of what they don't know. And there was really no questions on that car. You knew exactly how much you had to spend on it. You knew what worked and what didn't work. And that goes a long way with people, as opposed to like that 993 auction. There's a lot of question marks, and the seller wasn't very engaged. So to that auction, I think that really helped that car out. In terms of the 996 in general, I never got the whole, I never got on the hate train for the 996, either in terms of styling or the headlights or anything. I mean, I always liked them. and certainly they weren't what the 993 was, and they weren't what the 997 was, but they have their appeal in their own way. And the 996 turbo with the Metzger engine, essentially a bulletproof setup. Once you get around a couple of the weak points on that car, you can modify it to 800 horsepower and build an absolute monster, or you just use it as a daily driver. It does so many things well. And it's really a usable Porsche, which is a big departure from the 993, which is almost to Ferrari levels of maintenance expense.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. My goodness, regarding the car's reliability and ability to upgrade performance. And again, the people that are in the know love the 996, and it's for great reason. But now the 996, Jim, comes into its own.
Oh yeah.
And now here we are. A younger generation. But the younger generation appreciating the car that was on their posters, and also the truth about the amazing quality of the engine and what that car is capable of is going to help its values. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I always liked the 996. I mean, the 993, you clearly missed the air-cooled sound, the clunk when you close the door, that click, that you could be blindfolded and you know what it is.
Yeah.
The 996 turbo is my favorite turbo. Putting money aside, it doesn't really matter. To me, it's the most usable one. The old ones can kill you. The new ones are so fast that unless you have the proper road to unleash it, you can't experience the car. This is a usable car. I like these cars. I like the driving position. I like the visibility. And, back to the topic, this is a very good comp. This shows people with all the crazy asking prices and all the different specs out there. This shows an honest car, decent mileage, not high, but not a garage queen. With, like Doug said, is key. People are not afraid of issues. They're afraid of what they don't know. Tell people what's wrong with the car. Your car's going to sell. It's going to do good money. And a great seller. And everyone got a fair deal. He actually took a little less than he had for his reserve, and he was happy to do it. And that's a little inside scoop there. And I think everybody got a fair deal. So
yeah, well, that's really at the end of the day, that's what you can always hope for, is the buyer and the seller are happy. And when you see the 900 comments on social media, the guy paid too much, the guy paid too little, the guy paid too much. I love all
every single friggin' auction. I mean, I screenshot this all the time, because you'll immediately after it closes, you have one guy say steal the century, and then the other guy say all the money in the world. And I'm like,
come on. It's comical. Right. It's very funny to watch that. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. It's because your head just goes like, come on. I guess it's the personalities of human beings. It makes it interesting. But boy, oh boy, when I see some of these comments, it's like when we put up a Tiptronic and a guy goes, he puts the throw up face on and says a Tiptronic. It's an automatic. And sometimes you get to a point in life, and sometimes you just want to just drive a Porsche, not shift gears. And you don't have to love it, but there is a place for it. And you know what? They're doing well. Tiptronics do well. I guess as the generation gets a little older with the air-cooled cars, you get a 993 Tiptronic, and all of a sudden you have a lot more interest in that car than you did in the past. But then you always have that comment from someone that's like, it's an automatic, a Tiptronic, I hate it. It's just really funny.
Yeah, I love sticks and will till the day that I'm physically prohibited from driving them, but I'm not going to go on and knock an auction because it's a Tiptronic. I'm just going to move on.
Exactly. At the very least, just move on. Like, why take the time? So good. We're going to move on now to the questions, because again, we probably are almost 80% through on something that we have some time to go here. So a couple questions that we have from our community. Some of them come to the help desk, and some of them come to on a particular auction on a comment. So we have Larry in Alpharetta. Is that right, Jim?
Alpharetta, Georgia.
Larry, this is for you. Why do prices on higher mileage 993s fluctuate so much? So why do prices on higher mileage 993s fluctuate so much? I'm not even going to say anything here, Jim. I think this is a major sweet spot for you, and I know that you have to have something to add to this as well.
Yeah, well, it's simple, but it's complicated, because everyone looks at cars and they look at values, but when you're dealing with cars that are 15, 20, 30 years old, there's no two the same. So it really comes down to, what that car is. Some people, they want to see long-term ownership, the maintenance history, the particular color. I've seen cars go crazy because it was a configuration that maybe somebody had 15 years ago and they were trying to find that exact car. So there's so many variables without going on and on about it. But it really just has to do with the ones that are ironclad would be the maintenance history, originality of the car, the current condition of it, and obviously how high the mileage is. When he says higher mileage, I don't know if he means 200,000 miles, 100,000 miles, but I'm assuming he's not talking about a Concours, like a 20,000 mile car.
Right.
But those would be the ironclad ones, and then everything else, some of it's emotional and some of it's factual.
Yeah. Doug?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that. That's very right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I go back to the thing about 993s having near Ferrari level maintenance. That causes a huge disparity in pricing because on a car that has no common expensive issues, the values aren't going to fluctuate that much. But on a car that an answer to one question could be a $10,000 or $15,000 swing in maintenance that needs to be done, that certainly can affect the value very quickly. So without having that maintenance history and proof that those things have been done, in terms of like the secondary air injection or just the top end, if you don't have a good compression and leak down on a car, that could be a $10,000 mistake.
Yeah, I guess it's asking the right questions, looking closely at what documents are there, and if you need to do a PPI, you do it.
The good thing about Porsches is, you can drive them with everything wrong. You can have bad leak down and compression. The car will start and still go down the road and give you a moderate level of performance. It's only until you get into asking all the questions or care why that check engine light is on that you start spending that money. So that's the beauty of Porsches. I bought a car that had been sitting for 15 years and the head studs were broken and piston rings were shot and this and that, and we put a battery charger on it and it started up and ran. It didn't run well, but it ran.
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, what you're hearing in the background is a major storm. The hurricane is actually probably hitting us right now. You actually hear that sound? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we have a tin roof, so I'll move quickly here.
Go on to the parking lot.
What's that?
You say it's turbo spool.
Turbo, natural turbo spool. I have something to add to that. I thought was important, but the rain threw me off. But Jim, did you have anything to add to that before we move on?
No, I think that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. The rain is like, hurry, we're going to take your power out.
We can film it outside, like the weathermen. It'll make it more interesting.
Yes, we'll get an umbrella.
Yeah.
Can I still sell my car? This is Carl from Scranton, PA. Can I still sell my car locally while the auction is live? Man, Carl, did you hit a hot button with us, okay? Because I'll say one thing about it and pass it on. Remember, this is not eBay. This is not like a car is being sold locally and blah, blah, blah. This is a commitment. The reason why we have the numbers and the success and the growth that we're having is because we're all in on selling your car, all in, which means social media, promotions. We have the fastest growing Porsche audience in the world, bar none, for what we have going on a daily basis here. And when we put all of our resources into selling a car for someone, our writers get paid, the photographer, editors get paid, and everyone is committed to getting this car up and sold. And then, so no, there's a commitment on both sides to sell this car here. It is not available for the 7 days. And that's where the commitment comes in on both sides. And, thank goodness we've had very little of any problems with that, but from very, very rarely time to time it has. And like usual, the seller is committed to the buyer's fee if they sell the car outside the auction. And Jim, maybe you want to share some stuff about that.
That's right, yeah, and I get that question from a lot of different people. I deal with it with auctions that are live, auctions before they go live, etc. And, one of the things I tell people is at the end of the day, we're a tool. And how you use the tool is going to determine how well you do in the end.
That's a great point.
So, if you think you have someone that's going to buy the car when the auction ends at a set price, okay, but if that guy is bidding, it's only going to equate to more dollars in your pocket. So again, it goes back to the tool. If you're feeding people to the auction and getting them to bid and putting it out there that this is going to sell, you're increasing your odds of getting the number you want or exceeding the number you want. If you don't do that, you can still use the tool, but it's just not going to work for you in the way it was designed.
Yeah, I want to hear, Doug, your point, but I wrote something down here as a response to that. It was the entire value of the auction format is to bring all buyers to the table at once. This ultimately works to the benefit of both the buyer and the seller because they'll bid up to what they're comfortable and they find value. And here's the thing that some of you may take issue with, but the buyer that asks to buy the car after the auction, if the car doesn't sell, is usually a buyer as they are a person.
True statement.
Because if you're a snaker, you're a snaker. And I've had situations where that happened, and then the guy calls afterwards, say, hey, by the way, is that offer still available? What happened? The guy who tried to snake the car decided not to come through. Oh, surprise. Or the car only gets to 75 and he offered you 80 after the auction ends, and then he sees the car only did 75. He's like, why am I going to give you 80? It only did 75.
That's right.
And don't feel bad about that because he wasn't giving you 80 anyway. So the bottom line is this is a commitment on both sides. There's integrity involved, and when that commitment is shown and followed through, it only results in the best for everyone. Doug?
Yeah, my answer to the question would be why. I had to write stuff down too because I knew I couldn't say it as concisely off the cuff. But I said that discussing price or disclosing reserve or making any intimation of a post-failed sale deal does nothing except encourage buyers to hedge their bets that it won't meet reserve. And we never disclose reserve or even talk about it, even though people ask, because people that want to escape the auction format do so because they want to monopolize the situation to their advantage. They want to take other competition out of the arena so that they can buy typically for less than market value. And, in the dealer wholesale world, we're equally as guilty of this. I'll send out a car for bids and the dealers go, well, just tell me what it takes to buy it. And I'm like, they only do that because they want to buy it for less than another dealer might pay.
Yeah. And why else would you do that if that's not the case? I mean, it's human nature. It's good or bad. And it's funny that we both had to write something down. We had to write something down for that, right? Because it's a serious question and it needs a precise answer. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
It's not in the seller's advantage to discuss a reserve or a sale outside of the auction.
No way. I'm interested in buying your car. Bid. That always winds up being the best for everyone because that's where you want the people, and that's ultimately.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So moving on here, Scott. You listening, Scott? From Boca Raton, Florida. Does the phrase "when the roof goes down, the price goes up" apply to Porsche? And again, I'll pass it over to you guys, but it depends on what car, it depends on what color. It was and will be. Wait, that actually was an answer to a different question. I'm only human. I think that was my PTS question from last week, answering the wrong question. But yeah, so it depends on the car, it depends on the year, and there's a lot to talk about here. But we'll kind of try to nail it down. Doug, let's start with you on this one.
Sure. I'd say in general, that's true for about the first 3 years. The convertibles command more demand and a higher price, not only in Porsche, but other manufacturers as well, especially Ferrari. But then there's a point at which they cross and maybe mechanical issues start to present themselves in the convertibles and the enthusiast buyers start paying more for the coupes. So maybe after about 3 to 5 years, those values cross and the coupes start to become worth more. This is certainly exacerbated when you look at 80s and 90s convertibles because not only do they have complex servos and mechanisms and hydraulic things that are constantly failing and are very expensive issues, but they're just plain ugly. Like, a Carrera 3.2 Cabriolet or 993 Cabriolet looks awful with the top down because it's got this clunky top and a big tonneau cover. And, Porsche's not alone in this. Aston Martin was one of the worst offenders during that era. But nobody's going to pay big bucks for a convertible that looks kind of janky with the top down.
All right. Yeah.
So, but then those values cross again when you look at really, really old cars, and that's not necessarily a function of age particularly. It's because if you look at the 50s and 60s Roadsters, number one, they're beautiful. Yeah. Number two, they have something that's key, and that's racing provenance. So the 550 Spider has racing heritage. The Ferrari 166 Mille Miglia has racing heritage. Yeah. People are buying those cars because of their history, not specifically because they're a convertible.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. I think that when you look at the early Spider cars and you look at the racing heritage, they were no tops on them. And so then that flows into many, many years of street production where those are cars that are affiliated with racing and so forth. And then absolutely, I remember I had a Club Sport Sport, 1988 Club Sport. It had no sunroof. You know the car? It's an 88 G-body Club Sport. They made 39 of them. I had the one that had air conditioning. And if you're out there and you have that car, I don't like you because I miss it. All right, I was very upset I sold that car. It was unbelievable.
Would you sell it for 40 grand or something like that?
I don't like you either now. I actually, it was further along than that, so it was more than that. But it was.
You didn't sell it pre-2013.
No, I know, but it's worth 4 times what I sold it for. But I remember that car, that G-body car, like you were saying, a convertible compared to that thing, no sunroof. You know, like look at it, even sunroofs. Even a car with no sunroof is worth more money. The world's gone mad. You went from a cabriolet being worth more to a sunroof being worth more to nothing being worth more, right?
It's all about what you don't have, right?
Yeah.
So, sunroof cars in 1973 are worth more. No sunroof cars in 1990 are worth more.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Jim, I know that we always talk about this. When we have a car coming on Pcar, it's amazing. We said, oh, if this thing was a coupe, it would go through the moon. And it's a cabriolet or it's a Targa, which Targas, because of their new body Targas, which they did a great job.
Gorgeous.
What a car. Really spectacular. But Jim, right? We look at these cars when they're coming to auction. We have those. We have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, exactly. I think Doug nailed it. I mean, he didn't leave much left to say. I just think it comes down to like what the intended purpose of the car was. You know, when you take a 911 and you chop the top off of it. What Doug said, it's more valuable for the first 3 years. It's a new car. It's more expensive window sticker-wise. But then when it comes into the collector world, enthusiast world, it becomes nothing. But when you take like the new Speedster, that's not a car that's going to really be worth less than a coupe. Any Speedster, for that matter, 89, because it was designed and intended to be an open-air car, not a car with a roof that they just cut off to make a convertible. And then when you go into cars that aren't really sports cars, that's where I think, I forgot the gentleman's name from Boca who asked the question.
Scott.
Sorry, Scott. I think that's where the convertible is more like on a Mercedes. You know, an SL is always going to be worth more than an S because it's a nice cruising car to drive up and down.
It's a pedestrian car, and it has different purpose.
All Cadillacs are like that, right?
Yeah. I think, yeah. So I hope.
That's an excellent point, though. It's what was the car originally designed for, because that's what it does best.
Yeah. I guess that's the case for not only that, but you also have the integrity of the car, the weight added for a convertible. If you're into performance, how it originally was designed to be what, and there's, again, we can keep going on and on. But I'm going to stop here because I know there's we got to keep this with a certain amount of, to keep your interest. We're trying to keep this to a certain time. I hope you enjoyed the show, Doug. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For being part of it. Yeah, no, we'll do this again. Jim, obviously, thank you as usual. Of
course. Yeah,
thank you for listening to Pcar Market Live. We're inside the market. Check out our next podcast. We have a few guests coming up. We're going to be recording soon. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.